Hey guys, welcome back to my sewing room. My name is Amanda. If you haven't been here before, if you have, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be showing you guys how I created this overbust corset. It is so versatile. I do have the pattern here. It is my pattern that I worked so hard on. I have graded it into 17 sizes, from a size 2 all the way up, I think, until a size 26 or 28. I can't remember. I will put it below in the description box below. I worked on this so long ago. I cut a size 16 for myself. I wanted to show you guys that most people can cut a straight size and sew it up and it will fit them almost perfectly. You can also alter this pattern, like grade between the sizes to have a more customized fit. I cut a size 16 and it was slightly on the bigger side. So next time I probably will grade between the sizes. This pattern is so versatile. You can use it for a transparent corset like we did today. This is more of a lingerie style corset. That's why I don't have it on today for the intro. It is completely see-through. So you will get some nip action or whatever. This is a more lingerie style corset. You can also use this same pattern and use layers of satin. You can use couture, linen, whatever you want to use, and create an actual corset that does reduce the waist slightly. There's no waist reduction in this pattern per se. So if you do want to have that if you do want to have the waist reduction, you want to grade between the sizes. Maybe cut like a regular size for your bust and then a smaller size for your waist, and then go back out to your high hip if you wanted that waist reduction. But this will, believe me not, okay? Believe me, this will have you cinched in pretty well. You can also use this as a base for a wedding dress. You could cut it off at the waistline and it can be your bodice for your wedding dress. It can be the inner corset structure for your wedding dress. I also am going to have a video coming out Friday that shows you guys how to alter this pattern and turn it into those underbust corsets that we're seeing trending on Instagram and things like that. So this is a very versatile pattern, and all the proceeds that I get from selling this pattern will go towards a ball gown project. Finally, I've been having so many of you guys ask me to do a ball gown, and it's just so hard to be able to invest the amount of money that it takes to make an actual ball gown and not see a return on it. So I decided to go ahead and launch a few patterns and then stack all that money up until I can get enough money to go and purchase all the materials and things to make a ball gown. So I'm excited about that. So if you guys are a member over on the channel, make sure to check the community tab with your discount code to go ahead and get this pattern for free. Okay? If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Also turn on notifications so you guys can be notified every time I post a new video. If you guys are interested in learning how I draft all of my sewing patterns, as well as getting one exclusive members only content a month, as well as perks like this, getting some of my patterns and things that I launched for free, make sure to click that join button down below to join the Mom That Sews membership. Also, before we get to the video, I know y'all can skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. I've been getting a lot of questions on where I got my wig from. I will put the link below in the description box, as well as this outfit that I have on. I've actually made this. This is a 1940s meets modern take on the bodice and skirt sets. I'm planning on making a whole bunch of these, so if you guys are interested in seeing how I make these, super simple dark manipulation, blah 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 blah, let me know and I will film a tutorial for it. All right, now let's get to it. Whew. Y'all ready to start this? All right, so the first thing you are going to need, we're going to talk about our materials. So I pretty much just use corset mess for this. I made it as a 1-layer corset. You could do it as a 2, 3, 4 layer corset if you wanted to. And I will do future videos building up to those more difficult style corsets. Today I decided to do more of a savage, lingerie style corset. And I did use and I did use corset mesh. Oh, you know, I would bathe in corset mesh if I could. Okay, I love corset mesh. Do not buy it from Etsy. I seen corset mesh on Etsy for like $14 a yard, $15 a yard, and I'm like, are y'all kidding me? On AliExpress, you get a 5-meter lot for $15, and you can message the seller and be like, I need it quickly, and they'll be like, okay, it's $20 more, and then you get it quickly. So do not buy this on Etsy. I have it in black. I also have it in dark nude and regular nude, and I have a whole bunch of white. So I really do love corset mesh. Very versatile. You can use it for skirts, blah, 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 but that's neither here nor there. This is about the corset. So let's go back to, let's go back to the corset. So yes, you're going to need that. You also going to need some boning and some lace. I decided to use some scrap lace left over from a pageant dress that I did a couple months ago. I'm trying to use all of my lace offcuts and fabric offcuts in projects, and I'm trying to recycle them so that there's less waste here on my end, because Lord, is there lots of fabric left over? A lot. So I decided to use scraps of lace, and then I also am using 1/4 inch boning. You can do spiral steels. I think the next time I do it, I will get 1/4 inch spiral steel boning. It is better suited for this job than the plastic boning is. But like I said, I am trying to use what I have instead of ordering new things, since I've already placed an order for my January projects, y'all, and I'm on the budget, okay? Anyway, rambling aside. So we've done that, and I've got all of my pieces cut out here. I decided to go ahead and add a 1/4 inch around all of the seams, not the neckline and not the hem of the bottom, just the side seams. And I didn't add it to the center back portion as well, that the part that we're going to add the loops to. I did add it to the part that connects to its neighboring piece. The reason why I'm adding an extra 1/4 inch is because this pattern has a 1/2 inch into the inherent already in the pattern. But since we're doing a transparent corset, I want to sew with French seams, so I need that extra 1/4 inch so that I can have French seams. If you guys are doing this as a regular satin corset with lining, then you do not need to add this extra 1/4 inch, and you will also need cups too. Make sure you need cups. And I have plenty of videos that show you guys how to hand tack cups, and I will leave them above here. Very simple, y'all. I'm laying all of my pattern pieces right sides together with their neighboring piece, and I'm putting a ton of clips here to keep everything together, so we can take it over to the sewing machine and go ahead and sew this. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. If you guys are unfamiliar with Skillshare, they are an online learning community, and they specialize in learning content for creatives like you and I. I am so close, y'all, to launching my second ever collection, and I will be launching it in February. And I am trying to ponder on ways that I can do my own marketing and photos and things like that for the collection. So I kind of searched marketing here on Skillshare, and I found the first class on here, which is absolutely perfect. It is content marketing, create a 1-minute video by Sargood. Oh my goodness, guys, this is a must watch for anybody who's interested in creating those Dolce & Gabbana Prada type marketing videos that you can launch on Instagram and Facebook. This is really a great starting point for that. Obviously, you still need your equipment and camera and stuff like that. Anyway, Skillshare is so kindly gifting my subscribers a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. After your free trial, you can also sign up for Skillshare Premium for less than $10 a month, which is very affordable. You guys know how I am. I'm always getting classes and going to workshops, doing courses, so I really think this is a good idea to go ahead and give yourself a head start, especially in the new year, for you guys who are launching new collections and taking on new business endeavors and things like that. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the video. Now, remember we are doing French seams, so I'm sewing it wrong sides together first. I'm sewing all of these seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm sewing them all wrong sides together. And then after I sew them wrong sides together, then I'm going to trim down that seam allowance and flip it so that it's now right sides together, and that seam allowance is encased in the new seam. So I'm going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you wanted to make sure that your bones fit in there, you could also add 3/8 of an inch or a centimeter. You could add that in the beginning, so then at this point you would sew this seam at the 3/8 of an inch. I sewed it at a 1/4 inch. Some channels fit, some channels didn't, so that lets me know that I just can't sew straight. But if you guys are a little less confident in sewing your seams, then I would go ahead and add the 3/8 of an inch just to be safe. Okay, so after I finished up my front seam, you could take this over to the ironing table and press it, but I like to kind of get a lot of things, all the steps done that I can without pressing before, and then go ahead and press a little bit later on. So I'm gonna go and lay my boning channels, the new boning channels that we just sewn, or the seam, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna finger press it towards the outside. So the center back is towards the center back, and all of the seams are getting pressed towards the outside, and then vice versa for the other side. And I'm going to go ahead and sew this down on one side with maybe a 1/16 of an inch seam allowance, really super close to the edge of this. And this is creating our boning channels. You could kind of leave it loose, but I don't like to see my boning channels flapping around inside my garments, so I decided to go ahead and sew that down. Now, after I sew that down, I'm going to add all of my boning, which I did off camera because adding boning is aggravating. So I added all of my boning to my corset, and then I took it over to the pressing table and I gave it a really good press to press all of my bones flat. This is important. You do want to press your bones flat. And then I also used my cup pressing mold that I have, wherever it is. I use that to curve my cup area so that it's not straight, because we are using straight boning. And then I also pinned it onto my dress form and just gave it a good steam all around the neckline or all of this. I didn't film any of that. You guys have seen me do it a million times, a million bazillion kajillion times. So I didn't film it, and it was getting pretty late, and my sewing room started to get dark. So I decided to do that, and I let it sit on the dress form overnight, and then I picked it up back on the next day. So on the next day, I decided to go ahead and mind you, this is a one-day make, but I did start it pretty late in the day, so that's why I had to put it over to the next day. And on top of that, I'm filming, so it takes a lot longer to do simple projects when filming because I have to keep moving the camera back and forth and back and forth. Okay. Anyway, now it's time for the lace. I decided to use this beaded lace, which I really don't like this lace, but it's black and I have it, so I'm going to use it. And it's super beaded, it's got beads everywhere. So I decided to use this lace, and I am just laying it flat on my table, and then I'm pinning everywhere. First, I like to start with down the center front. So I pin down the center front to make sure that that is nice and smooth. And then I'm also using my cut pressing mold as a standalone kind of bust shape so that I can pin the lace onto the cup area. I do get a lot of you guys telling me that you don't have dress forms and what can I use as an alternative, especially when placing lace. And recently I've been doing a lot of lace placement flat on my table. And I do use that cup pressing mold as a bust shape for my gowns that I've been making, because a lot of my clients are not in the size 16 or the size 6 realm. A lot of my clients are plus size brides or brides on the bigger side, so I don't have a dress form as of yet that fits them. So I do it flat on the table and I just pin all over. And then I also have like a patch on this side and a patch on this side that I need to patch in. So I'm just going to overlay some extra lace and then cut it in a way that it looks like the pattern is continuous. Like I said, you guys see me place lace so much. I've been adding it more into my videos lately so you guys can see the lace placement. It is harder to teach lace placement because it is more of a creative process rather than something that's scientific. So I like to show you guys, especially sped up of me doing it, but I really don't explain it that much because everybody's brain works differently when it comes to lace placement, and every lace is different. So you just have to work with what you got. And this lace was particularly more difficult to place because it is more of a leaf pattern than it is a floral. All right. So after I have my lace placed, I decided, well, in my head, that I was going to hand sew all of this lace on here. And I did. I started. I sewed from the back side and I was doing like almost like pad stitching. If you guys are familiar with tailoring techniques, it was almost like a pad stitch that I was doing to keep the layers together. But then I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to take entirely too long. So I went over to the machine, and luckily with my machine I can sew with my presser foot upwards so I can avoid the beads. So that's what I did. I sewed all across the top and all across the bottom to secure the biggest piece of lace that we had. I had already did a whole bunch of hand stitching across the center front and the princess seams, so I didn't really have to mess with that. But if you didn't, you want to make sure that you secure down your center front and your princess seams, your side seams, and your center back. Those are the key areas that you want to secure down, especially if you're using a large piece of, like pretty much a one piece of lace that covered the whole corset. You don't want to just have it floating, because then as the wearer is wearing the corset, the lace will separate from the corset and you will kind of see it and it will not look professional. So make sure that you do tack it down in those areas. And then I sewed around all of the piecing that I did. I used, like I said, a free motion stitch on my industrial machine, and I just sewed all the way around that, and then I sewed the center back as well. After we secured the lace down, I am going to go ahead and use my nippers and knock off a lot of the beads that are in my way for the center back, because we need to put on our loops. Okay, so for the loops, I decided to use satin. I cut it on the bias, and I do recommend that you do not cut them longer than 10 inches because the longer your strip is, the harder it is to turn. So make sure that you're cutting it just a whole bunch of 10-inch strips. We need about 24 loops total for this entire corset. You could also use grommets, which I did plan to use grommets, but then I realized I didn't have any, which I thought I did. So you can use grommets. You can extend the back so it closes and put a zipper in the back. You can use loops like I'm doing here. The possibilities are endless, okay? So I did decide to use loops, and like I said, you need 24 of them. So I sewed a whole bunch of bias cut loops. You do want them on the bias, and then I use my loop turner to turn them the right way out. You guys can watch me struggle here trying to turn these loops out. Oh my goodness. Anyway, after I have them all turned out, then I cut them 2 inches long. So each loop is 2 inches long, and I just cut 24 of them. All right, I had a little bit extra. I probably cut like 30. So, but you need 24. Next thing you want to do is mark out your placement on your fabric. Since I'm using black fabric, it was really hard for me to see my disappearing ink pen. So I did go ahead and use pins, which I do not recommend because I always stick myself. But usually if I was working on like a white corset or any other kind of corset, any other color corset, I would use my disappearing ink pen to mark my guidelines for sewing my loops. So pretty much you want to measure down your seam allowance from the top. The top seam allowance is 1/4 inch. And then you want to measure up your seam allowance from the bottom. The bottom seam allowance is 1/2 inch. And you want to go ahead and place those marks, okay? So then you can see how much space you're working with. Then you can, you could measure the distance between the 2 marks and divide that by 12. That will give you the spacing that you need to mark out for each of your loops. For example, I think I spaced mine 2.5 centimeters apart. I believe that translates to about 5/8 of an inch or 3/4 an inch. I cannot remember the translation, but 2.5 centimeters is what mine were spaced. And then you know how life goes. You mark the guidelines for the loops, and then you start sewing the loops, and then they don't match up with the guidelines, so then you eyeball it anyway. That's the kind of situation that I'm always in. So, and my loops always turn out more like distant sisters. Like they've got the same dad but different moms. You know what I mean? They always turn out not so perfect, but that's a part of, you know, things being handmade. After I sew all of my loops on, now I have a straight grain piece of corset mesh that I cut. The width doesn't matter. I cut it the same width as my ruler, and I think my ruler is like 1.5 inches-ish, maybe 1.25 inches. I'm not sure. It really doesn't matter. You just want it to be at least 1 inch. And I am going to sew the loop right sides together with I'm going to sew the strip right sides together with the loop, and I'm doing this at 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to sew another stitch on the other side of that just to really secure these loops in place. Then you want to trim down your seam allowance so that it's not really bulky. Then you flip it to the inside, flip your extra, or fold the extra from the strip, fold it down, and then fold it down again. And then you can go ahead and top stitch that down. I top stitched it right at the edge, so because this is going to be another boning channel for our center back. And then obviously you want to slip your bone in there. I am going to do the other side off camera because you guys get the gist, right? It's the same thing for the other side. So I did the other side off camera. After that, I decided to go ahead and finish off the hem of the top. Now, in an earlier clip, I did show you guys me clipping on the binding at the top and the bottom, but then I decided to do the loops first. So yes, you're gonna make sure that you do the loops before you do the binding, but if you do the binding first, you'll be okay. Okay. So I cut my binding on the straight grain again because I need it to be stabilizing the neckline and not stretching with the neckline. So I did cut it on the straight grain for both the top and the bottom of the corset. And then like we do for all of my other corsets, I'll put a playlist up here or up here, which I can't remember which side it is. I'll put a playlist for all of my corset making tutorials. They're starting to stack up, huh? But anyway, I decided to sew. I sewed the top. I sewed the top binding with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I flipped it to the inside, did an understitch. You always want to understitch, and then flipped it under again and flipped it under again. And then I just did a hand whip stitch to whip stitch that down. And then I also did the same thing for the bottom. So I sewed it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance this time. I trimmed down the seam allowance, understitched it, flipped it to the inside, folded down that raw edge so there is no raw edges showing at all in this corset, and then I did a hand stitch down. Now if I wasn't using a beaded lace, I would have sewn this down by machine, but I just did not want to even keep fiddling with all of those beads on this corset, y'all. So I decided to go ahead and take the 15 minutes and do a quick whip stitch to secure this down, and our corset is all finished. This is a super quick, super easy corset, overbust corset, very simple. And like I said, this pattern is very versatile. I decided to get my Savage on and do some lingerie, do this in a lingerie style overbust corset. But like I said, you can use it in a bridal application, you can use it in a more costuming application, which I do have a whole bunch of costuming stuff coming up. My channel's not about costuming, but I've been wanting to make 18th century gowns forever, and I just watched the show Bridgerton on Netflix, and I love how 18th century the queen is, and then everyone else is like Edwardian, or I'm sorry, and everyone else is like Regency era, which is not really a very flattering era. But I will be making some 18th century, specifically 1790s projects. I did already purchase a stays pattern. If you guys don't know what stays are, they are pretty much the predecessor. Yes, predecessor. The predecessor to corsets, right? So what we know today, what we made today is the actual modern corset, right? But stays are what you wore underneath garments. It was almost like the bra, like how you wear your bra every day. That's how they wore stays. So I just bought a stays pattern, and I also bought the a Patterns of Fashion 1 book that has all of the patterns for 18th century style gowns. So I will be making those coming up pretty shortly. I'm going on a huge fabric trip this weekend to buy all the fabrics that I need to make those gowns. So I will probably vlog that. I don't know. I'm just rambling on, y'all. I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm having some costumes coming up soon. So this pattern is very versatile, and I just want to thank you guys in advance for supporting my channel, supporting my business, and purchasing this pattern. You will find the link to it below in the description box, and all of my members do get this pattern for free, so make sure to check the members only tab in the community section for your discount code for free. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Here are all the names to all of my lovely channel members, as well as my patrons over on Patreon. I appreciate you guys so much, and the list is ever growing. I'm so excited for that, y'all. I've got so many things planned, and I actually am making a ball gown, huge ball gown, for this month's members only project. So if you guys are interested in that, you can subscribe. Well, you can join over there. You don't have to join for the long term. If you just want to join, binge watch all the videos, and then, you know, cancel your membership for the next month, I won't hold it again. I won't hold it against you, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys more than you know. I hope you guys like this more rambly, see my personality, new style of video. I'm ever changing, ever trying to find new ways to have better content for you guys. I'll see you guys in my next one.